The night Moscow skyline burned, the world witnessed more than an explosion. It witnessed the moment fear crossed the border. A billion-dollar fortress shattered by a weapon that cost less than a luxury car. Ukraine didn't just strike steel and glass. It struck the very heart of Russian power. Tonight we uncover how one drone attack changed the rules of war forever. The battlefield of the 21st century is no longer confined to trenches, tanks, or fighter jets roaring across the sky. It has shifted into a realm where intelligence, precision, and technology dominate the front lines. Ukraine's use of drones to strike the heart of Moscow is a powerful demonstration of this new era of asymmetric warfare. When Ukrainian drones targeted Russia's $1.2 billion Moscow city towers, it wasn't just an attack on steel and glass, it was a strike against the illusion of Russian invulnerability. This attack symbolizes how innovation can overturn traditional military hierarchies. Ukraine, facing a militarily superior adversary with greater manpower and resources, has turned to creativity, adaptability, and technological advancement as its greatest weapons. For Russia, the attack was more than a physical breach. It was a psychological earthquake. Moscow's towering skyscrapers, built as monuments of wealth and progress, became symbols of vulnerability. The strike shattered not only glass windows but also the perception of absolute control that the Kremlin projects to its citizens and the world. In a war where propaganda plays as large a role as artillery, this event showed that even the capital of the aggressor is not beyond reach. Every Russian citizen who looked up that night saw more than a drone. They saw the shadow of a changing war, one that can no longer be confined by distance or power. What makes Ukraine's drone warfare so significant is its symbolism. These small machines carry enormous political and emotional weight. Each successful strike erodes Russia's confidence, challenges its dominance, and strengthens Ukraine's global image as a nation of resilience and innovation. The Ukrainian drone strikes have also inspired a new military doctrine for the future. Nations around the world are closely watching this conflict, recognizing that the lessons drawn here will shape global defense strategies for decades to come. Traditional powerhouses are now realizing that expensive tanks and jets may not guarantee victory against adversaries who master speed, intelligence, and remote warfare. Ukraine's success lies not in brute force but in its ability to adapt, to take what little it has and turn it into something that challenges a giant. Ultimately, this strike represents more than a single military victory. It embodies a shift in human warfare itself, a transformation from heavy artillery to precision technology, from domination by strength to control through strategy. It's the story of a smaller nation that refuses to bow, using the power of modern innovation to strike fear into the heart of a much larger enemy. The Moscow drone strike stands as a symbol of this evolution, a warning that the skies belong not to the strongest, but to the smartest. The Moscow city towers were a powerful symbol of Russia's modern resurgence. Massive investments, foreign businesses, and corporate offices filled the complex, showcasing Russia's post-Soviet dream of global influence. Yet with one drone strike, that dream faltered. Flames lit the skyline, and the once glorious hub of commerce became a scene of chaos and fear. For investors, business leaders, and citizens alike, it was a wake-up call that the war they saw only on screens had now arrived in the heart of their own capital. The strike disrupted not only operations within the towers but also the confidence of global markets watching from afar. Economically, the blow was far greater than the physical damage. The towers symbolized trust in Russia's ability to protect its financial assets and maintain a sense of normalcy despite the war in Ukraine. After the attack, that trust was eroded. Investors began questioning the safety of Moscow's commercial centers. Insurance companies faced uncertainty about covering infrastructure that could no longer be guaranteed secure. The idea of Moscow as a safe haven for business, especially foreign investment, was fractured. Each new drone alert or air defense siren became a reminder that no amount of wealth or influence could guarantee safety in this new era of warfare. This attack also had a ripple effect on the Russian economy itself. Markets react not just to numbers but perception and confidence. The image of burning towers in the capital city undermined Russia's portrayal of strength and stability. It reminded the world that Russia's resources and power could not shield it from vulnerability. Every time images of the strike were broadcast internationally, it weakened Russia's narrative of dominance and raised questions about its control over its own territory. For Ukraine, this was a strategic victory beyond the battlefield, a precision strike not only against infrastructure, but against Russia's global credibility. The cost of the strike wasn't only measured in rubles or damage reports, it was measured in shaken confidence. The elite class in Moscow, who had long viewed the war as a distant affair affecting only soldiers in border regions, suddenly realized that their world could be touched too. The luxury offices, high-end apartments, and corporate spaces they once believed untouchable had become targets. This psychological shift carries immense weight in any conflict. When the rich and powerful begin to feel unsafe, cracks begin to appear in the political and social stability of a nation. For Ukraine, the attack represented an extraordinary return on minimal investment. The drones used in the operation cost a fraction of the value of what they destroyed, and the disruption they caused, it was a masterclass in economic warfare, where the imbalance between cost and consequence is vast. Furthermore, the global community watched with renewed attention. The world saw Russia struggling to protect even its most iconic financial centers, and Ukraine proving its reach and resolve. It also served as a warning to other nations relying too heavily on symbols of wealth for power projection. In modern conflicts, glass towers are as vulnerable as frontline bunkers. The incident reinforced the lesson that economic symbols are no longer safe from the reach of technological warfare. In the end, the strike on Moscow city towers was more than an explosion, it was an unraveling of perception. It showed that Russia's financial might could be pierced, its confidence shaken, and its economy disrupted with precision and strategy. The attack will be remembered not just for the damage it caused, but for how it redefined the balance between money, power, and security in the modern world. Ukraine didn't just hit a building, it struck at the very heart of Russia's pride and prestige, proving that no empire, no matter how rich or powerful, is immune to the sharp edge of innovation and resolve. The political and psychological aftermath of Ukraine's drone strike on Moscow's $1.2 billion city towers was perhaps even more powerful than the physical damage itself. For the first time since the war began, the Russian capital, long considered the fortress of power and control, was directly threatened. The echo of explosions in the skies above Moscow shattered more than just the night silence. It shattered the perception that the Kremlin was untouchable. Fear, uncertainty, and anger began to seep through the walls of Russian politics and society, signaling that the war had crossed into a new and deeply unsettling phase. For President Vladimir Putin and his government, the attack was a political embarrassment. Moscow had been portrayed as a symbol of Russian strength, an impregnable heart of the empire. When Ukrainian drones managed to breach its defenses, it sent a chilling message. Even the Kremlin's might could not guarantee safety within its own borders. This was not simply a tactical strike, it was a strategic humiliation. The Russian leadership had built its reputation on control and dominance, but the attack revealed cracks in that image. Suddenly, Russian citizens and global observers alike began questioning how secure the Kremlin truly was. The political fallout was immediate. Inside Russia, the government's propaganda machine scrambled to maintain composure, downplaying the damage and attempting to spin the event as a minor incident. But the public was not convinced. Videos of burning towers and shattered glass circulated across social media, spreading faster than the government could censor them. The images struck a deep nerve among Russians, many of whom had been living in denial about the reality of the war. Now that war was not thousands of kilometers away, it was visible from their apartment windows. The psychological impact was immense. It fueled anxiety, fear, and even quiet resentment toward a government that could not protect its own capital. The strike also changed the mood among Moscow's elite. The business class, politicians, and wealthy citizens who had long believed themselves immune from the consequences of the war suddenly faced the same vulnerability as those on the front lines. The psychological shock was profound. No one, not even the privileged, could now claim safety. This erosion of confidence among the elite poses a dangerous challenge for Putin. The foundation of his power rests on maintaining control and the illusion of stability. When that illusion begins to crumble, so too does loyalty. Behind closed doors, whispers of doubt and discontent began to spread among the ruling circles. Internationally, the attack forced the world to see a new balance of fear. It demonstrated that Ukraine was not just surviving, it was capable of projecting power deep into the heart of its enemy. This act of defiance redefined the global narrative of the war. It showed that Ukraine, despite its smaller size and limited resources, could challenge Russia's dominance in ways that carried enormous symbolic weight. The message was simple but powerful. No place is safe. No system is unbreakable, and no ruler can rest easy when confronted with the resolve of a nation fighting for survival. The psychological warfare embedded in this act cannot be overstated. Every drone strike over Moscow plants a seed of doubt, not only in the minds of the people but also in the heart of the Kremlin itself. Fear spreads faster than fire, and in authoritarian systems built on image and control, fear is poison. The more the Russian government tries to suppress it, the more it grows underground. The strike reminded the world that morale and perception are as decisive in war as weapons and soldiers. By making Russia feel vulnerable, Ukraine achieved something that armies and artillery could not. It pierced the shield of invincibility that the Kremlin had projected for decades. Beyond fear, however, the attack also reignited a sense of determination within Ukraine. It proved that even in most fortified targets could be reached through courage, strategy, and precision. For Ukrainians, it was not just a military success, it was a psychological triumph, a moment of pride that inspired the nation to continue resisting against overwhelming odds. Ultimately, the drone strike on Moscow city towers became a turning point not just in the physical war but in the psychological and political dimensions of the conflict. It disrupted the balance of perception, exposed the fragility of Russian power, and proved that courage, when paired with innovation, could shake the mightiest of empires. The sound of drones over Moscow was more than a warning. It was a declaration that the era of absolute power was over and that the battlefield of the mind had become just as crucial as the one on the ground.